My audience, was being diluted for a long time because back in January we did an episode where we talked about vaccinations and things like that, and the mainstream media was already talking about the things we had, discussed in that podcast. We were just discussing things that were starting to come to light with even the mainstream, global, CTV, all these things we're discussing, uh, injuries from uh, things that are considered safe and effective. And now, when I checked the warning, because the warning is finally removed on October 22nd, I checked the impressions in my analytics, and they're showing my videos to far more people without that warning on my account. I've done some digging, listening to other YouTubers who have dealt with these warnings, including one of the biggest YouTubers on YouTube right now, Dr. Eric Berg. I believe that's his name. Dr. Berg is he discusses keto. He's a big keto advocate. Now he's a chiropractor, so he's not an actual medical doctor, I should say, but he's obviously very well researched in what he has. And of course, top chiropractors do know a lot about biology and all that kind of stuff, of course. So he has been basically shadow banned. I bet you the word shadow banned is flagged in some way. But his audience used to have, I think he used to get 100 million views on average a month. And now, since he has been, uh, keto has been deemed health misinformation on YouTube, he only gets, I think, 25 million per month now. And so they've calculated and figured out an estimate about 75% of your audience is diluted once YouTube sort of flags you. I'm a big advocate for fasting. I think fasting is one of the most important things you can do in your life. I eat one meal a day. I've been eating one meal a day for the last 5 or 6 years. Um, and I've never felt better. I think the human body is very similar to any other kind of mechanics. The biomechanics of our human body runs off of energy. And energy comes in three separate forms. You get your protein, your carbohydrates, and your fat. And we live in a world where we eat carbohydrates, and we've been tricked into eating carbohydrates all day long, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And carbohydrates are a very condensed form of energy. It's like the analogy I try to help explain this to people is, if you were to throw paper on a fire, you get a burst of energy, a burst of heat that, comes as fast as it, or disappears as fast as it rises. And when you throw a log on the fire, you get a steady, long, sustainable heat. And that's the difference between consuming fat and consuming carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are a fast burning energy that go into your system, and then it causes that crash, that tired energy. And then what happens is it creates a looping cycle where your body gets into a deprived state where it craves that carbohydrate. And so we were misled back when they started to tell us that breakfast was the most important meal of the day, because it's basically setting yourself up for needing more carbs by 1 o'clock. And then you get that hunger pang in your stomach where it says, "Oh, I'm hungry." But that's not your body saying, "I'm hungry." That's your body saying, "Hey, give me some more of them drugs. Give me some more of that sugar." Because that's what carbohydrates are. For those that don't understand, carbohydrates is glucose. Glucose is sugar. It's no different. So if you're eating a lot of rice, that's breaking down into glucose. If you're eating a lot of candy, that's breaking down into glucose. And glucose is a very condensed form of energy for your mitochondria. Your mitochondria needs to act and function efficiently to process energy. Now, if your energy is starting to bottleneck your mitochondria, then what happens is that, especially with glucose, that glucose begins to ferment and find pathways that move throughout your body, and this is how cancer is formed. I don't want to get too far into this kind of stuff because I'm still a little hesitant to discuss cancer on YouTube, because when I got my YouTube warning at the beginning of the year, they make you take this questionnaire that basically says, I will not discuss anything about health or anything along those lines because I am not a medical expert. Even though, all this information is pretty straightforward, biology 101. But yeah, you've got these foods here that they're trying to tell us that are carcinogenic and terrible for us. Harmony Haven says, you've been lied to. The foods they say are killing you, they are actually superfoods. Here are 8 foods you should eat every day. 1. Butter. Myth on butter. It is high in saturated fat and clogs arteries. Fact. Butter, especially grass-fed butter, is a source of vitamins A, D, E, and K. In moderation, it can be part of a healthy diet. Now, see, you combine lots of butter with a lot of carbohydrates, and you're forcing your system to try and choose between two rich energy sources. And that forces the body to store the carbohydrates, which then transition and turn into glycogen and then carry a lot of water, retain a lot of water. Another myth is salt. Myth is it causes high blood pressure and heart disease. Truth, while excessive sodium consumption can be harmful, salt is essential for hydration. The function of the nerves, muscle contractions. The key is balance and choosing quality sources such as sea salt or Himalayan salt. And yes, that's true. But one thing about salt as well is typically your body, when you are enjoying the taste of salty things, it's because your body is lacking sodium. So once your body has been satiated with sodium and you've got enough of it, that craving and that taste for salty things starts to minimize. Have you ever been eating a bag of salt and vinegar chips or anything really, really salty, pretzels, and initially the first few bites you're enjoying, and then eventually you kind of go, oh, you know what? But you know what keeps you coming back? It's not the salt that keeps you coming back. It's the carbs that keep you coming back. You ever think about how, when you were a kid, you could eat cereal all day long, just dummy and not cereal. And pizza, you can eat a whole pizza to yourself, but just for some reason, you sit in front of a plate of vegetables and meat and cheese, and you don't really keep going. Your body kind of goes, okay, I've had enough. And that's very similar with salt. Don't get me wrong, you could definitely eat too many salt and vinegar chips, and you can definitely eat too many pretzels, but don't think it's the salt that keeps you coming back. It is the carbs. Let's move on to eggs. This is another big one. Eggs. The myth, they are high in cholesterol and bad for your heart. Fact, eggs are a great source of high quality protein, vitamins, and healthy fats. They actually increase HDL, good cholesterol, and are not linked to heart disease in most people. HDL is referred to as high density lipoproteins. And then you have LDL, which is low density lipoproteins. And low density lipoproteins are what happens in your blood and in your body when you, again, combine high fat with high cholesterol or high carbohydrate. But if you reduce the carbohydrate, what will naturally start to take place is your HDL will increase. Low density lipoproteins moving through your arteries are soft. And what happens is they begin to stick to your arterial walls. And then they build up and they clog your arteries. And that's how you can have heart attacks. Now, if you reduce your carbohydrate intake, and a good way to do that is fasting. Fasting forces your mitochondria to consume the energy that it has stored before you fill your stomach up again and fill your body up with more energy. So by reducing the carbohydrates, the HDL goes up, which are high density lipoproteins. And high density lipoproteins are solid. So when they move through your system and move through your blood and your arteries, they carry weight to them. So they start knocking the low density proteins out of the way and clearing your arterial walls, making you healthy or healthier longer. So don't fall for those mistakes. HDL is good and LDL is bad. Let's see, we got red meat. Red meat. They're trying to convince us that we don't need meat because you got people like Bill Gates who want to start feeding us bug protein because they want to weaken the people. They don't want the people being strong. Strong people fight back. Weak people do what they're told. Myth with red meat, it causes cancer and heart disease. Fact, lean cuts of red meat are rich in protein, iron, zinc, and B vitamins. It's about choosing quality and moderation, not elimination. The other thing about red meat, and this is just my theory, I'm sure there's some information out there that can back this up. But red meat is a very dense, rich source of protein. And again, with dense forms of energy, you can have too much energy and not utilize it. So if you're not a physically active person and you're not exercising a lot, working, building, ripping your muscles to try and grow, then having a lot of red meat might not be beneficial, as all that protein and all that energy isn't being utilized correctly in your body. So you're forcing the body to process too much energy again. So if you're going to be eating and consuming a lot of red meat, highly recommend using that red meat to replace muscle cells or replace muscles and build muscles, because otherwise, again, you're forcing your body to try and process too much energy. Whole dairy products. Myth: high fat content causes obesity and heart problems. Fact: full fat dairy products contain essentially fatty acids, vitamins A and D, and can help promote satiety. And we'll say it like that. Reducing overall calorie intake. Now, let's hear what this.
So if you drink low-fat or non-fat milk, you're not absorbing the fat-soluble vitamins that are essential to help strengthen and build bone. Whole milk has all the essential nutrients, fats, proteins. It has some carbohydrates.
It's balanced.
You can now absorb your fat-soluble vitamins. It's the way that milk comes as a package. Low-fat, by the way, low-fat and non-fat milk is a relic of the fat is bad for you era.
Aren't you going to get more of the lactose than low fat as well, as you like remove a lot of the fat nutrients out of whole milk?
It's the same. It's just now.
Well, it's the same, but now that's more highlighted.
It's now just sugar protein in there. So if you drink low.
I switched the whole family to homo milk. It's higher in fat. You want fat content, because what happens when you remove fat from something? Fat is flavorful. You ever bitten into a gristly piece of steak? Sometimes, I remember when I was a kid, I would bite into the fat on a piece of steak. Too sweet, gross. So when you skim and pull the fat content out of foods, which took place back in the 80s and 90s, if some of the older people will remember, it was all about fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free this. And when you look at the contents in the foods that they replace the fat with, of course, it gets replaced with sugar. So you went from having, all this tasty, healthy fats in our foods to replacing it with sugar, which was bullshit. It was a lie. It was a myth. Taking the fat away only confused the system. It's like all of a sudden now you've got these healthy foods that were once rich in fat become like a pizza. Half carbs, half fat. And that's not good. That confuses the system. So don't listen to these nut jobs telling you that these things are unhealthy. Potatoes, another one. Myth: they are higher in carbohydrates and cause weight gain. Fact: potatoes are rich in potassium, fiber, and vitamin C and B6. When prepared in a healthy way, como, baked and boiled, they can be part of a balanced diet. Absolutely. I love mashed potatoes, but again, I only eat one meal a day. So for me, by the time I get to eating, my body has processed everything from the day before. Everything I have, and I do eat a large meal. I don't just eat, 1,500 calories in my meal. I mean, sometimes I can just go nuts and have 3,000 calories and not put on a pound. It's because my body is ensuring by the time I get to my next meal, I haven't eaten, or I haven't any stored energy in my cells, in my system, and my mitochondria operates efficiently. Not to mention, men's testosterone levels balance. Females' hormone levels will balance. Just our hormones balance themselves when we are in fasted states. Now, this one is the one that I actually was surprised to see on the list here. I'm not against coffee. I drink lots of coffee, probably too much coffee. So I'm a little relieved to see this one on here. It says, myth: it causes dehydration and heart problems. Fact: coffee is packed with antioxidants and can stimulate metabolism, improve brain function, reduce the risk of certain diseases such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. I used to drink black coffee, but I don't ever since I started fasting, I can't seem to keep weight on me. So I started putting some cream in my coffee, which is fatty cream, fine with me. And, you know, occasionally I'll toss a little brown sugar in there just to sweeten it up, because I feel like I deserve it. But another one on here that is a nice one to see, dark chocolate. Myth, high in sugar and fat, an unhealthy treat. Fact, dark chocolate is rich in antioxidants, particularly flavonoids, which may improve heart health. Choose chocolate with 70% cocoa or more. Well, I mean, I don't eat a lot of chocolate unless I've had a toke or two. Another thing, this beginning of this week for the live stream, I wanted to make sure my brain was a lot sharper, and it's continuing to get sharper since I've given up smoking pot. But tell you, it's nice to know that you can enjoy these kinds of snacks a little bit. But again, I don't want to confuse anybody and think that you can, eat chocolate or all these things combined with a lot of carbohydrates. If you're gonna have if you're going to listen to anything I say today, the most important thing you have to do is minimize and limit your carbohydrate intake. And I wouldn't suggest limiting to no carbohydrates like ketogenic. I've tried ketogenic dieting. I feel like ketogenic dieting does serve a purpose. I think it helps reduce and sort of turn the clock back on certain health issues. Cognitive function is increased. I think it will reduce the effects of, or the potential for neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and those kinds of things. Some theories believe that we evolved. Now, I don't necessarily believe this, but I've definitely done my digging, that we evolved as a result of consuming high levels of fat because of the cognitive increases that it has. So the conclusion is, don't let mainstream media brainwash you into unhealthiness. What do you think about it? So, again, I've been very involved in health, nutrition, and fitness for the since 2015. And I've experimented with many, many, many different types of diets. And bless you. If you could do anything, one of the recommendations for women is that I've researched and found to be the most ideal window for women would be from basically 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. to sort of eat your 2 meals within that window. And that will give you a long period of time for your body and your mitochondria to process the meal from before. And again, I think that we age slower. I think we age slower if we don't consume high levels of carbohydrates. I mean, you look at all the actors and actresses that remained fit, thin, and healthy throughout their entire careers, like Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt never fluctuated in weight. He always maintained a lean physique. He was always in great health. He never got blew up to play a role. You look at some of these, and these are white people too, right? People say, oh, it's genetics. I don't think so. You have supermodels. Look at all the supermodels. They're primarily white. Cindy Crawford, Elle Macpherson, Claudia Schiffer. What's the one, the girl from America's Got Talent? Heidi Klum. I mean, these women look incredible. And again, because they're supermodels, their careers it was their responsibility to minimize their carb intake to ensure that, and their sugar intake to ensure that they stayed at a certain healthy weight. So by forcing all this energy, and again, carbohydrates are a very condensed form of energy. When you force this into your body, you're giving yourself too much energy. And I personally believe that it sort of expedites the aging process. It speeds it up. I'm 43 years old. I don't think I look 43. I've been told I don't look 43. I don't have my skin and body doesn't seem to be aging at the rate of people and friends that I see, and it's not me trying to sound arrogant or boast. I think it's important to spread this information because I've had cancer run through my family and decimate, lots of my family. And thankfully, my sister and my mother, who were both diagnosed, change their diets to healthy diets, which of course help them fight back and beat cancer and are still cancer free today. My father wasn't so lucky. I didn't know any of this information. My father passed in 2005 and from colon cancer. And my father ate a lot of garbage. He drank a lot of beer, and he loved his pork rinds and his, just gross stuff. I mean, some of the stuff my dad would eat, like, gross. But so we'll talk about this kind of stuff more. It's been a long time since I actually talked about this kind of stuff because, again, YouTube has kind of made it sort of a scary topic for me to address. I don't really want to get censored again, trying to grow this thing into something. And it's scary to think, oh man, you got to watch what you talk about when it comes to YouTube. But hopefully this video isn't already gotten me in trouble. But again, it's after 9 o'clock now, so we're going to wrap this up and we'll be back again next week or on Monday. Might be doing something this weekend with my son. We might come back on Sunday to talk about the UFC. And if it isn't on Sunday, excuse me, if it isn't on Sunday, we'll be back on Monday to discuss the results of the UFC at the end of the show. But we'll just end it there. I'm Matt Garrett. This is Lies and Logic. Thanks for listening. Please hit that like button, like and subscribe, and we will hopefully see you guys on Monday.